Can you remember the time in your own childhood or adolescence when you formulated the desire to be an actor? Was there a point, someone you saw or someone who influenced you?
Well, no, I would say it was a gradual thing, as it probably is with most people. It's an unusual choice of occupation for a sort of centrally placed male American. You know, when you're out there in New Jersey, you don't suddenly pop up in the middle of your football practice and say, yes, I'm going to be an actor. You don't, it doesn't do it that way. I probably really started thinking about doing it after I was doing it. And vaguely when I was working at MGM in the cartoon department, a job which I got really mainly to observe movie making because I was sort of starstruck that time. Still am.
Histories of you at school, they relate that your rendering of Managua, Nicaragua, showed people the early talent. How did that, what was Managua, Nicaragua?
Managua, Nicaragua was a hit song of the early 40s, actually, in which I sang it in a grammar school variety show in a red and gold crepe paper cape with a sort of bellboy's monkey hat on. I was rather flamboyant, I would say, for a 7-year-old or whatever it was.
When you got into movies, those early films, the pre-Easy Rider films, the Roger Corman movies, do they make you wince when you see them on television now?
Well, they all make you wince. I mean, I think work of any vintage, because, you know, you embody your own work, makes I would imagine makes anyone wince, or at least it should. I got to do a few things that I actually liked, and I must say that although I was in some of the most dreadful pictures of all time, that I was, and so were all of the people I was working with, trying to do their best under the circumstances, and that's really all you need as a developing actor, is just to be trying to do it well. If you can live with the humiliation of, you know, being in something where it's pretty funny, you know, it's not bad for you. I always have felt that I was lucky, because if I had been successful that early, I'd be in a position where I was trying to make a comeback now. You know, almost all of the actors, for instance, the first show that I was in, Michael Landon was the star actor in it, and while we were doing the play, he got Bonanza. So all of my career, up until when Michael left Bonanza, went on while he was on Bonanza. And that was very good for him, you know what I mean? And everybody was envious, as I would be naturally at the time. But in reality now, obviously, I wouldn't trade it with him.
The turning point for you was certainly Easy Rider. Someone told me that you modeled your part, the part of the Southern lawyer, on LBJ.
Well, I didn't have the normal length of time that you would have to study a dialect, and since the character was from Texas, and some of the speeches that he had were sort of evangelical, Johnson's speech pattern, and which was familiar to my ear at this time from hearing it and so forth. You know, I mean, I didn't put it out in front as an imitation, but it was something true that I could refer to in terms of a way of talking. But also I wore I wore glasses like I remembered from, you know, my family, my father wearing at that time. Character was supposed to be 42. I sort of remembered what my father's glasses, you know, all kinds of things like that.
You mentioned that you modeled your spectacles on your father in Easy Rider. In 5 Easy Pieces, there's a scene where you break down in front of your paralyzed father. Were the shades of your own home there? Was there anything realistic about the way you did that scene, which I understand you were reluctant to do? Is that so?
Well, I was reluctant to do it because it was a scene that Rafelson, the director, wanted very badly in the picture. And the writer, Carol Eastman, who had also written The Shooting for Monty and I, which was her first piece of professional writing, and this was her second. And I think probably today, it certainly is one of the best, if not the best, pieces of material that I've ever gotten to do, from script form to film result. And she is extremely elliptical in her writing and felt that the scene structurally was the obligatory summing up scene, and felt that that scene shouldn't be in there, that you shouldn't you shouldn't indulge, pander the audience that much. You know how in creative issues people make up these rules for themselves. And my loyalties, although normally they would always be with the director in that situation because you're on the spot and the writer is not, I have a deep sentimental attachment to Carol, a long relationship. The film was written sort of out of her impulses about her family and also what she knew about me. And I had a slightly more than usual feeling about defending the writer. However, that didn't keep me from actually writing the scene.
Were there echoes of your relationship with your own father in that film?
I didn't have any real problems with him, and I don't really. There was a substitute male figure in the house. I have older sisters and married, and he was rather a nice, very mild gentleman, John Jay.
Still alive?
No, both my parents have been dead for a while. Rest in peace. So no, I would say I had I would say, throughout I've had a fairly easy life, really, when you get down to it.
I understand you turned down The Godfather and The Sting.
Yes, that's true, and I think I had enough business acumen, I know I had enough business acumen by then to know that that both The Sting and The Godfather were going to be huge hits. At the same time, I happen to think that Last Detail and Chinatown are, to me, they were the more interesting of the films. Godfather was going to be a good film. I'd always wanted to work with Marlon, but I was asked to play the lead in it, and A, I felt it should be an Italian person, and B, didn't have any scenes with Marlon in the script I read. And I thought, well, I'm liable only to get to work with Marlon once, and let's hope that it might be something where we really had to work together.
When you eventually did work with Brando, I understand you call him the guy on the hill, is it?
The big man on the hill.
Why do you call him that?
Well, he lives up the hill from me.